there, Lit Lotus community. This is Melinda Van Kirk. I'm so excited to bring you a new episode of the Lit Lotus podcast. If you've never joined before, this is the podcast for caretakers, for healers, for spiritual beings who are seeking more holistic health alternatives for both mind, body, and spiritual well-being. I'm a spiritual and holistic lifestyle and health coach, and I lead transformational journeys to help you find better health and wellness through self-love, self-care, and simple habit evolution, all following the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda and yoga. I lead a group community as well as offer one-on-one sessions. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me, please head over on to my website, litlotus.me, M-E. And you can see all my offerings there, as well as, of course, join me weekly on Insight Timer for some live yoga sessions and all the fun things. So let's move on and get straight to our episode today. So today's podcast episode is all about setting up your lifestyle for success, or maybe a better way to put that is architecting your life to make successful choices. So we're working on setting ourselves up in a way that allows us to make the quote-unquote right choices, the choices we're trying to make, and get rid of some of the options maybe in our life that make us go off path, if that makes sense. We might tend to veer off to one side, right? So, for example, eating healthy, architecting your space to help you make those choices about, I'm going to eat this food that feels good. I know it's going to be good for my body. And then we're not making the other choice, which okay, this is going to cause some weight gain. It's going to cause digestion problems. It's going to, perhaps cause these other issues. And so we don't always know the things that we think are good for us, right? So I always encourage experimentation, especially with things like food, right? I can give you some really basic routines and structures around your day, which are super helpful. But when it comes to eating, that's a big part of this process, right? And it's not just what we think is healthy. Like a lot of people eat protein bars thinking that's a healthy choice. I'm going to tell you right now, your body doesn't need any of that processed stuff. So if you're eating protein bars, it's usually filled with chocolate and sugar. And yes, it has protein in it, but it's really like a glorified candy bar. That's what I tell my husband all the time, which he knows, but he still likes. But I'm going to encourage you to think about different ways and kind of a different mindset around how you approach the food. So how you're combining foods makes a really big difference. What time of day you're eating certain foods. Because at certain times of day, like at your noon meal, you're actually able to digest a lot more things. So you might be able to handle something spicier at lunchtime that maybe at dinner time is going to just wreak havoc and cause indigestion, right? Or cause heartburn. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help us make those quote unquote correct choices. And I also encourage you to experiment with trying different things. So, it might just start with keeping a food journal or a food diary. And this is just the example of food. So we'll get there with how this relates into other parts of your life as well. But with a food diary, you're able to just basically write down, it's not to count calories and mark everything that you ate, but it's to be like, okay, I ate this at lunch, this felt good for me. I had this at dinner, this didn't work for me. And kind of assessing what results happened from that thing. So for example, let's go back to the spicy foods. Perhaps at lunchtime you had a little spice to your meal. But you also balanced it out with some cooling elements. For example, you had some Mexican food and it had a little bit of these hot spices in it with the jalapeno, but you balanced it out with some lime and cilantro. And so that's a really great way to approach, I want these spicy foods. I know that they might not work for me all the time, but I can have a little spice and I can bring in some of these cooling elements to help balance that out. Versus I just had a really, really spicy burrito and you didn't have the cilantro and lime, and your whole body's on fire, right? Or versus you ate that in the evening, and maybe that little lime and cilantro wasn't enough to cool you off, and you still got heartburn in the evening. Or perhaps, you were really having that spicy dish, extra hot, and now it's like it's causing you to lose sleep because you're sweating, you're having hot flashes at night, you're having heartburn or acid reflux. And so there's a lot of repercussions that come with the foods we eat, and also when we eat them and how we combine them together. So not to overwhelm you with all this information around food, but it's to start thinking about how you can set yourself up for success. So if you are having that spicy Mexican dish, now you know that gives me heartburn, I'm going to need to bring in some elements, and let me experiment here. Maybe I back off how much hot sauce I put on it or the level of spice, and maybe I add in some of those other elements. And then you might notice, hey, this really works for me in springtime. I need that little bit of extra heat. But in summertime, if I eat this dish, I'm going to be sweating bullets and I'm going to be on fire. So seasonally, that can change things as well. So with architecting these choices, it's not just about I buy the right foods, but it's about knowing how to put them together and when you can handle those foods. And it's always an experiment, right? We're in this period right now. It's, February 8th as I'm recording this. And it's this period of late winter. So we're starting to move out of this Vata season towards Kapha season. So I've noticed my diet has changed quite a bit over the last few weeks, and what I'm craving has changed quite a bit. And it's becoming that time where we're ready to purge, right? So fall, winter, we have all those warming spices, and I still want some of that warming in my diet, but now I want to start to bring in some cleansing things that are going to cleanse the liver, start bringing in fresh lemon to my diet. I've been putting cilantro on my food. I'm even adding in more pungent foods, so a little more onion, a little bit of garlic this time of year, which doesn't work for everyone, right? So if you're a Pitta person, garlic's probably not going to feel great for you. But just noticing how things feel. If you're a Kapha energy type, that's that energy of earth and water. As we move towards this Kapha period, the spring period where it's wet and cool and damp, we need to start balancing things out. So doing those liver cleanses right now, or starting to introduce liver cleansing items, are going to help us. And we want to circulate the blood more, so we might bring in that garlic into our diet a little bit this time of year to help kind of stimulate the blood flow. But we still want to balance it because it's still winter, right? So even though you might have a warm day today, tomorrow could be freezing cold and you could get a foot of snow. So it's this time of year where it's turning more damp. The snow becomes more damp even. And we still need to be careful with our balance. So what does this have to do with setting yourself up for a lifestyle? And I'm just using food today, like I said, to start as my example. So I want you to think about how you can set yourself up for success. So food being the most obvious, because I think that's the one people probably have the hardest time with, is one, just looking at what's in your pantry and what's in your fridge and doing a clean out. So I started mine this week. I got through a couple shelves in the pantry. It feels really good. I've got a lot more to go. The fridge is pretty good, but there's a few items I still need to go in and purge. So just starting with like pulling everything out. And you don't have to do it all at once. I mean, it's very satisfying if you have an afternoon to be like, I'm doing it all. But if you don't, like I did 2 shelves the other day because I had about 30 minutes. And that felt really good just to do 2 shelves. And then it's all neat and organized. And I dumped old stuff. I had so much stuff in the back, which I would love to have shelf pullouts, which is one way to help set yourself up for success, is having those, those pullouts in your pantry. At some point, someday, I'll get that installed and everything. But in the meantime, I have these clear containers. I can see the food. It's labeled. I got rid of all the old stuff. So I have grains I've had in there for like 2-3 years. I'm like, these are not good anymore. Sometimes we hold on to things. Like I had some wild rice I bought forever ago and I don't really like it. And I used it a few times and I've just had like a cup of wild rice in the back of my pantry. So into the garbage it went. Same with your spices. If you have really old spices that are more than 3 years old, it's time to clear those out. I still need to do a little bit of clearing of my spice cabinet. And I know it's really hard for me to dump those things, right? You're like, oh, I spent all this money. But let's be real. Like you probably got your $5 worth over the years. So it's time to dump those things out and start with some fresh. And you might not need to replace everything. I tend to overbuy and then I never really use that. So don't get it until maybe someday you decide you need a recipe and you want to go get that thing. So starting with the clearing out the clutter. And this is not just your pantry and your fridge. For spring, I love to start with the pantry and the fridge. It just feels like an easy way to go to that space, and it feels very satisfying as I complete little bits at a time. It could be other parts of your house. I definitely have a closet in my spare bedroom that needs to be reorganized and cleared out. And part of that challenge for me in that space is, where do I put the things I pull out? So it's sort of you might have to work backwards. So I know that I need to move some things out of there and I don't have anywhere to put them. And I know there's a closet in my basement that needs cleared out that would have a ton of space if I would clear some of those things out. So maybe I really need to start in the basement. So kind of think about how you can clear out your space. And there's a reason we do spring cleaning, right? We do it in our lives because it's been kind of cold and damp, and it gets dirty in the winter and it gets dusty, and we start cleaning things, cleaning windows, clearing out the clutter. And that's such a great way to create spaciousness, and not just in your physical space. Once you create spaciousness around you, you start to want to do the things that you've been putting off, right? So for example, if you're wanting to ride your bike, and maybe it's a little bit early, but now is the time to be like, okay, I'm going to go clean up my bike, put air in the tires, take it for a tune-up if I need that, and I'm going to get it ready to roll. Or maybe you need to move it out. Maybe it's hanging up in your garage or somewhere in your basement, and you need to move it into a different space. And that's going to incentivize you and make it easier to make that choice then. Okay, today's a beautiful day outside. It's sunny. My bike's ready to roll. I can just hop on and go. I don't need to do all the things. So it's the same with your space, whether it's your fridge, your pantry, your closet, your clothing. It's such a good time of year to start purging stuff you don't need, things you haven't worn in over a year. Start getting rid of those, put them in the giveaway pile, give them to somebody else that will use them. Marie Kondo it, thank it for what it's done for you, and send it off with your blessings to help somebody else. So you don't feel like you're just throwing stuff away, where I struggle. I'd much rather give away than throw away, right? And it's a beautiful energy then when you give that to somebody else, even if you never see that person, you give it to them with thanks and love, and you're sending it on for a new home somewhere. And that feels really good. So you're creating spaciousness in your consciousness, in your physical space, and you're creating an environment that's inviting, and you're ready to take on the world, and you're raising your vibration, as I always talk about, right? So these are all things, they might seem like daunting tasks, but you are going to clear out the energy in a much more positive way. On that note of being a daunting task, if something feels overwhelming, I'm going to invite you to break it down to a much, much smaller thing. So I talked about the 2 shelves in the pantry. If that's too much, maybe you start with 1 shelf. Maybe you start with 1 section. So there's a lot of ways you can break it down to take out the overwhelm. That 1 closet I keep looking at, it's funny, until I'm talking to you in this podcast, I never thought, okay, well, I don't have stuff anywhere to put some of this stuff that I want to keep. So it's not that it's filled with all this extra stuff. It's just like, where do I put it? And now I'm like, okay, maybe I start there. I start with my storage solutions. I take a peek. I actually know down in the basement I have a couple spaces. I just need to reorganize a little bit. So maybe I start with reorganizing 1 shelf in that basement closet. So there's really simple, easy ways, and setting aside that time to give yourself space to restructure. And we fill our lives with so many things. And I know cleaning is often the last thing we want to do, but maybe after dinner one evening, before you sit down in front of the television, you say, I'm going to spend 20 minutes today. I'm going to go clean. A great example of this, I've been really resistant to doing this drawing I promised someone. It's been over 6 months now. She's like, whenever it's done, it's fine. But for me, it's been like, why am I so resistant to this? What is happening here? And I found that every time I looked at it, I didn't feel like drawing. So when I told myself, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes every day, maybe it's not even every day, every couple days, and just draw for 10 minutes, I found a lot more joy and inspiration coming into that drawing, and I felt so much less pressure. And so little by little by little, I've been working on it, and I'm getting much closer to being done. And I also feel like now the end is in sight, and the next time I spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever feels good for me, the task doesn't feel like a task. All of a sudden I'm enjoying it and I'm actually having a good time doing this drawing, and I'm like, wow, I haven't felt this in a long time. So just letting go of some of the mental clutter around it, the physical clutter in your space. So if that means reorganizing your desk, or, looking at the things you have resistance to, maybe it's making healthy eating choices. Starting with those things where you have the resistance is going to give you the most bang for your buck, if you will. If you struggle to start any kind of exercise in the day. I love the 10-minute exercise, the 5-minute exercise. The days I don't want to do yoga, I'm like, I got 10 minutes. I have a slew of 10-minute videos, right? And actually, I even posted on my YouTube channel, if you want to head over there, I have a 5-minute sun salutation video. I think technically it's 6, but just something to give you a little pick-me-up. So 6 minutes in the morning, I'm committing to this. And you do it. And you're like, I can do 6 minutes. This is silly. I waste 6 minutes every day doing something else I don't need to do, right? Or I hit snooze and that was enough time that I could have done my exercise in the morning, or I could have meditated in the morning. So break it down, break it down, break it down, and set up your environment for success. So in the example of exercise, I gave you the bike example. If it's yoga, perhaps you just roll out your yoga mat the night before and it's ready to go then in the morning. You've got your video, you know exactly what you're doing. Or maybe you're just doing sun salutations on your own, and you just go. And if you don't have that yoga mat set up, you might find the resistance. Oh, I don't want to get out my mat. So if you have that resistance, set it up the night before. And sometimes that takes reminders. I'm a big fan of Post-it notes and alarms in your phone to remind you to do things. There's nothing wrong with that. So finding those little areas of support. And one of the exciting things about doing that right now, it's not just that we're approaching spring, but tomorrow here is the new moon. And so as we approach the new moon with that waning moon energy, it is the time to let go. So I would love to do a quick meditation. If you're driving, just listen. If you are in the house, just be in a seat comfortably. Even if you're standing, just stop what you're doing, relax your arms. Release your shoulders away from your ears. And take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And exhale out the mouth. Notice what your mind is doing right now. See what story it's telling you, what thoughts are coming in. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, release the breath. Let's expand our arms out to the side. Deep breath in. Stretch through the chest, open the chest. And out. One more like that. Nice deep breath in, arms out. And exhale, release. And tell yourself, I am open to all that is good. I am open to raising my vibration. And next exhale, let the arms rest comfortably once again. Feel that expansiveness through your chest. If you feel like there is something you are ready to release, and it could just be that mental thought pattern, let your consciousness, that it resides in the heart center. So feeling that, asking that space what it needs, and letting the mind settle. So we're coming out of the ego brain, out of the chatter of the mind, settling into your heart space. What is it that you desire? What are you ready to release? And feeling that in your heart space. And if the mind is telling you something, oh, I don't know what I'm ready to release. I don't know what I want, blah, 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 blah. Say, okay, mind, thank you. Thank you, ego, for your input. And tune back into your heart center. And if nothing's coming up for you, that's okay. Well, we have these two separate entities, right, that live in us. We have our heart space, that our desires that come from that space, from this beautiful space of love. And then we have the mind chatter that we're trying to figure out all the time. We want to let the mind chatter go. Or at least just recognize it to release it. Because if you say, mind, stop talking, that's the mind talking, saying, stop talking, I can't take it, right? Let it go, let it go, let it go. Or just recognize it. I see you, I hear you, Thank you for your input. And then take a nice deep breath in. And exhale, release. Beautiful. Stay here for another breath or so. Feeling in and out of your heart space and letting the breath flow in and out of the heart. You can even let the breath flow in through the nostrils. And then let it slide down, exiting out the heart. And then blinking the eyes open. Notice how you're feeling. You might be a little more centered, a little more aware. Yeah, that's the space you want to come from, that heart-centered space. When the mind won't turn off, there's a lot of things we can do. And meditating is not always going to work, right? You might need to stand up and move the body first, and then come to that space. I'm a big fan of Qigong shaking. That's a beautiful 5-minute morning routine. You can do every day just to get the energy flowing, and you're just shaking your body. Just look it up on YouTube if you want, or just literally get up and shake your body. Shrug your shoulders, shake your hands, your arms, your feet, your legs, everything. And then pause at the end of that and feel into the energy. And notice how it feels as it flows through your body. And that's a beautiful way to start a routine. Doesn't mean that's your routine forever and every day. Maybe it is. Maybe it becomes part of your daily routine. But you're finding ways to feel like you're doing the things you want to do and you're setting yourself up for success. You're architecting your environment and structuring things so you're able to make the choices that you want to make. Because when resistance is high, those choices probably aren't going to be made. But if you have an opportunity where resistance might be high, but it might lower a little bit because you've set yourself up for success, you're much more likely to make the changes you want to make. And this can be applied to anything and everything in your life. This can be applied to your workspace. So if you work in a very cluttered space and it feels not great, I encourage you, before you even sit down, take a moment to clean up your workspace. Get out the wipes or spray bottle and the duster, wipe down your computer, your desk, clear out the clutter, put away the papers that have been stacking up. And if you have a very messy desk, I know this might take more time than what you have. So break it down into those small little increments. Say, I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to file paperwork for 10 minutes. I'm going to throw out things I don't need. And you're going to feel so much better every time you do those little things. I promise you. You're going to start your day feeling more open and spacious. And you're going to hopefully move into your workspace in a much more heart-centered way. And of course, it always helps to give gratitude as you move. So once you take that time, you're like, oh, I'm grateful I took that time to clear out my space today. Or I'm grateful that I had nothing on my calendar at 9 a.m. so I could do this. And you can even block out your calendar, especially at work, right? I often hear about people that are like, I just work through my lunch. And this is a struggle of a choice for many people that work in an office, right? Meaning it's so easy to work through lunch. And even if you're eating, you're reading emails, you're doing other things. So setting yourself up for success, whatever that looks like. So let's say you pack your lunch. Maybe there's a fridge farther away from your desk where you store it instead of the one closest to you. And maybe you have to get up and walk to a different section of the building. And maybe you're have a cafeteria area or a beautiful outdoor space and you can take your lunch outside. So you're setting yourself up to sit in a space away from your computer, even away from your phone, or if you have your phone, bringing headphones and listening to music while you eat, doing something that's uplifting, taking a little walk after you eat. All those things are going to be hugely beneficial to your day, and they're going to help you feel revived. Working through lunch never helps you feel revived. And I'm just as guilty as the next person many times in my life, and it's so easy to get caught in that office environment where it's almost like an expectation you're working through lunch and catching up on the emails you didn't get to. or your online shopping. Oh my gosh, that used to be a huge one where I worked. Everyone would be on their computers online shopping at lunch because you didn't have time at home, or it was like your mental escape, right? So instead of walking around the building or going down to the cafeteria or going out to another space, we'd all get on our computers. And finding support. So it's not just how you're setting up your environment, but is there somebody in your life that can support you with your choices? So at work, maybe you find a friend that's willing to do this with you. And you say, hey, I need someone to help me escape my desk at lunch so I can feel more rested and revived for the afternoon. Would you come with me at lunch and we go sit together and have a lovely chat? Or if you see me on my emails at lunch, will you say something to me? So you can ask for support in many different ways, but you need to be really specific for this support. A really good example at home would be, let's say your partner maybe doesn't make the best choices at dinner, and you're like, I need to make my own choices at dinner. I'm going to have to eat before you eat, right? Maybe I need to eat a little earlier, and I'm going to make my own food. And maybe they join you. Maybe they say, hey, actually, if you're cooking, I'll have what you're having. And maybe that shifts. Or maybe it's like, hey, I need you to know and support me in the fact that I'm not going to be eating dinner with you. It doesn't mean you can't sit with your family or sit with that person. But if you eat first and you're satisfied and then you just sit and have a nice cup of herbal tea with the family during dinner, it's going to be much more enjoyable. You're not going to be getting up and running around. And it doesn't mean you can't cook for them, but you're able to sit and relax and just hang out with the family and enjoy that time. And you're asking your partner to be supportive of your choice, basically. There might be people in your life that maybe steer you in the wrong direction. Maybe you have a drinking buddy and, every time you get together that you guys drink. So perhaps it's asking that person and saying, hey, I'm trying not to drink as much or at all. And so instead of going out to the bar, can we meet up earlier in the day and go for a walk together? So you're still hanging out with that friend, or maybe that friend just needs to fall away, depending on who it is, right? There's people in our lives, sometimes we're like, why do I hang out with this person? They're not a good influence. We know who those people are. It doesn't mean that you don't love them and care for them, but you either transition how you get together with that person, or it's probably not going to end well. Especially if you are a very empathic person, we are easily influenced by the energies around us. And there's certain people that have strong influence in our lives, and you could probably look at your friends and say, oh my gosh, yeah, I always follow this person, instead of making your own choice that is good for you. So you want to support yourself with those that love you and care for you and are willing to say, yeah, I'll support you in this. And if they say, no, I can't support you in this, then you're like, well, I'm going to need to take a step back. I still love you, and I'm going to protect myself because I need this for me. So you really want to create this daily routine of support. So whether it's support in how you set up your environment, support in finding the right choices, and sometimes it's taking that time before you ever start to figure out what those right choices are. And I use the word right in quotes. Right or wrong is probably the worst way to put it. Let me rephrase. The choices that make you feel better. So you want to make the choices that bring you back to this high vibrational state always. And that's what it's all about. So that's my right, quote unquote. It's really bringing you back into high vibration. If you know that food is going to bring your energy down, if you know that food is going to make you feel lethargic after you eat it, that is not a high vibrational choice. Even if in the moment it seems like, oh, this is exactly what I want. Because your mind's probably telling you, this is soothing me. If you go back to that episode where we're talking about soothing your nervous system. So if your mind is saying, hey, this chocolate cake looks really good, it's filled with sugar and fat, and I know it's going to make me feel good in the immediate term, but about an hour later, I'm not going to feel good. Those are the things you need to kind of walk through, and just know that's just your brain telling you something. And that is not the right choice. So, it's hard with a partner that doesn't eat healthy to eat healthy and have the right foods in the house. So set up your fridge. Maybe you divide it in half, or you put your partner's stuff in the back. I do that all the time. If there's something that's tempting to me, I shove it in the back. If it's in the pantry and I'm always grabbing it, I shove it in the back. Chocolate is one of them. That's where I struggle. Even if it's just a little square, I'm fine with having one square a day. It's when I have more than that, and I notice when I start having several squares a day and it's just grabbing out of habit, I move that candy bar, or I move the whatever it is, the sweet, the chips, whatever it is, I shove it to the back so I don't see it. I put all my chopped vegetables in the front or in the eye level where I can see them. So I'm setting myself up to hopefully make the right choice. And the last piece of this is when you do make the choice that maybe wasn't the best choice for you in the moment, have some grace and give yourself some love. And then ask yourself, what do you need to do for next time to make a different choice? So we spend so much time beating ourselves up, feeling so bad about our choice. Oh, I ate that piece of chocolate cake. I wish I hadn't had that piece of cake, right? I do it too. And be like, okay, you know what? I made the choice that wasn't the best choice today. And how can I change that for next time? So what led me to eat that piece of chocolate cake? Okay, so good example. We had Sunday dinner. I made a pasta dish. I was okay with that. I had garlic bread. Maybe that's a little heavy. And then I ended it with a piece of chocolate cake, which I had no intention of eating. But my mother-in-law brought over the chocolate cake. And I never asked her to not bring dessert. And she just does that out of kindness, right? She likes to bring a dessert and she'll bring wine. So the times when I don't want the wine and the chocolate cake or dessert or whatever, I need to just say, you know, I'm not going to have this today. Either please don't bring it, or if you want it, that's fine. Just please let, you know, I'd like you to support me and not have, you know, not serving that to me. Don't cut me a piece of cake. Don't ask me if I want any cake. Don't ask me if I want any wine, right? It's if she's bringing those. And a lot of times if I say, hey, I'm not drinking tonight, she won't bring a bottle of wine over, right? So she might realize she doesn't really want the wine. She's just doing it out of habit or because she thinks that we all want wine. And sometimes we do, right? It's not beating myself up over making that choice on Sunday evening, but then it's asking myself, what do I need to do next week if I feel awful afterwards? How do I want to remedy that for next time? So it's a little bit of thinking ahead, and it's also giving yourself some love and be like, it's okay that you made a choice that wasn't the best for you today. It's okay. We are faced with so many decisions and things to think about in our lives. A lot of times our resistance is low, right? I don't know if that's the right word. Our ability to say no is low, right? So these are just a few tips about ways that you can set up your life to get the support you need with your daily routine. And that's including finding that daily routine so you don't have to make a choice. And let me conclude with this because I forgot this little piece. When you set yourself up for success and you do those little things, and especially if it's a routine you're trying to make part of your life, let's say it's every Sunday I prep my meals, or I at least just chop some vegetables and I meal plan and I go to the store, you need to start making it a routine. It doesn't mean it's going to happen perfectly every week. That's not how life works, but it's not about being perfect. It's about saying, I'm going to start changing my routine a little bit at a time. I'm going to start with one meal a week where I prep and I plan it. And then I'm going to layer into 2 and then 3. And you're building on those little habits. And if you've read James Clear, Atomic Habits, or Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, fantastic books, both of them. BJ Fogg has one called Tiny Habits. They're all based on the same theory, but they're all fantastic writers. And they provide a lot of great tips. So you can always go to those books and just say, what do I need to do to change my habit? I need to make small changes. I need to have support. I can rely on time of day. So if it's the same time every day, you don't think about when you brush your teeth in the morning, right? You're in the habit of doing it. So my favorite thing is habit stacking, where you are layering in habits, right? You're able to say, every day I brush my teeth and now I scrape my tongue too. So you're layering in little habits. Every day, every morning I want to do some exercise. I'm going to make sure that when I get up, I find my 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is that you have in the morning to do your exercise. And you start with just bringing yourself to those spaces, setting up your environment, and building those automatic routines so you're not thinking about it. And it actually takes a choice out of your day. And then the days where you have that resistance, you find the simplest, easiest thing that you can do. All right, I'm going to conclude our podcast today. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to know a little bit more about my coaching, this is just one little piece of it about building these lifestyle changes. Please head over to my website, litlotus.me. You can explore some of the information on there, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you ever just want to shoot me a message, there's a contact form there. You can message me on Insight Timer. If you want to join me for my weekly yoga class on Insight Timer, head over, find Melinda Van Kirk as a teacher, follow me, and then you'll see all my live events that I post. And yeah, I would just love to connect. I love to talk to people and see how they're doing. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.